thank you for joining us for our second Simply Unbreakable webinar. Today's topic is practical tips and insights to help families during COVID-19. We're excited to have Dr. Christina with us today. She is she's working in the field for over 25 years with a range of children and youth with different presentations. Dr. Christina will be speaking with our Christy Dickinson, founder of Chronically Simple. And over to you, ladies. Oh, just a little housekeeping. We ask that you keep your selves, you are on mute, just to help us with the presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box to your right. Christy?
Hi, good morning, Dr. Christina.
Hi, nice to see you like this.
Yes, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I think it's going to be so valuable for the communities that Chronically Simple supports, and just for everybody, really. Liz briefly mentioned a little bit about your background, but if you wanted to share a bit about who you are and why I think you're so amazing.
Oh, yeah. Oh man. Well, I wanted to share that this is an absolute honor for me. Anytime I'm asked to speak, I just feel so blessed that I've given this opportunity. But I will be honest, I've never done a webinar. So this is a first for me. So I am especially excited about it to see how it goes. I will share a couple bits about me just to kind of put some in context, some of what I say. And I think it's also just to make it a little bit more personal that I don't know if I actually shared this with you before, Christy, but I actually have an autoimmune disease. I may have shared that. My body attacks my eyes. I get something called iritis. And so when I was, asked to do this webinar for families who may have children who may have a parent with, some type of medical condition, chronic illness, immunocompromised, it's like, okay, that really speaks to me because I know what that's like. I also have 3 kids, one of which has celiac disease and a heart disease. That was the one that helped me with my technology getting set up. So for those of you who don't know, I struggle to get online and to be seen. So, we have a lot of procedures at home to manage him, which includes extreme limits on what's in our kitchen. And because of his heart condition, his surgery was canceled due to the pandemic. But I know he's in a high risk category. I have an autoimmune disease. I worry about him. And I just say that, I share that so that people listening know that I have a little bit of a personal sense of what's going on as well. But I do have 3 kids. So he's my oldest at 22, almost 22. I have a 19-year-old boy as well who's finished first year, and I often talk about him because he is a tough kiddo to parent. He's pushed the limits, and I can now, coming out the other side, he's actually a great young man. He's fantastic. So I have him, and then I have a daughter in grade 10, and she's great too. She's sweet. She's anxious, perfectionist, but she's lovely. So I have 3 kids, been married for 25 years, and that's sort of me in a nutshell. Personally, I'm quite open with who I am. I'm not, I don't know, I don't put it all out there, but if you had questions about who I am, I'm very open to that. I think it's also important to note, I've been working in the field for 25 years. So I have seen kids with a full range of mental health conditions, whether it's anxiety, depression, OCD, emerging bipolar. I've seen the full range of psychiatric. I've also seen kiddos with severe developmental disabilities, genetic disorders, autism, intellectual disabilities. So I've covered the developmental area, kids who struggle with school and learning. Could be just a garden variety learning disability or significant learning problems. I've seen those kiddos, ADHD, communication disorders. And I've also worked with kids that are medically fragile. So in addition to kind of the genetics or the developmental disabilities like autism, I also see kids who have uncontrolled diabetes. I've worked with kids who are struggling with cancer. So I've worked with the physical, the developmental, the learning, the mental health. I've seen a lot of kids. And what do I do with all of these people? Well, I conduct psychological assessments when we don't know what's going on so that we can get a better understanding of a child's cognitive, academic, emotional, psychiatric profiles to then build treatment recommendations. SUTSI assessments, and I do psychotherapy with children and adolescents and their families. And again, I've seen a huge range of issues. And I also supervise. I supervise really advanced students. So typically if someone is towards the end of their PhD or they're in the process of getting licensed, I will take on 1 or 2 students a year. And I provide professional consultation to schools, to other professionals who may not be in the field of psychology but are looking for some supervision, but they're already practicing. And recently I joined the Ontario Psychological Association's Disaster Response Network to respond to the pandemic, but so far I've had no referrals from them. I mean, it's a free service. I would provide service for free to people that are struggling, and I think it's mostly first responders who are accessing the support. And so as a child and adolescent psychologist, that I see it on my slide and I feel like, oh, am I a fraud? I signed up for it and nothing's happening. So
Well, it's amazing that you signed up for it, and, you know, grateful maybe that not everybody has.
maybe that's a good sign. I don't know. So
Yeah.
we'll see. And as we get deeper and deeper into this, I think, are we on week 9? Maybe there will be more. I don't know. So that's kind of who I am professionally, personally, the work I do.
Well, I'm not, I'm also an open book, my community will know, and my family has been grateful to, been able to utilize Dr. Christina's services over the years. And when we talked as a team about, you know, how can we better serve the community that we support, and, you know, looking at the mental health side of this pandemic, which is really, I think, you know, you touched on what week we're in and how long we've been trying to navigate this. I think we're really starting to see some mental health side effects and concerns coming out. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for giving us this time today. And let's, we did prepare some questions. So Liz, if you want to over to the next slide, we'll just get right into it because we've got some really good content to chat through, I think. So the first question that we came to you with were, what are some of the challenges that you're finding families are facing during this time? And I know that's pretty broad.
It is. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And as I was reflecting on that question, even just this morning, I would say the challenges that I'm finding families are facing is actually evolving. So I know I've listed some of the challenges and I'll go through on with them. You know, I would say there's been more of an evolution towards what's becoming more depression and isolation, whereas the initial was almost panic. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Right. So what challenges are families facing? It seems to be changing. And I suspect if this continues, it's going to change yet again. Right. Either we get used to a new normal or it could be trickier. Right. But I would say, you know, once that first, you know, I call it the end of the world on Friday, the 13th. It was March 13th when we got all those big announcements. I think there was some, okay, it makes sense. You know, kids go away for March break and then they're going to quarantine for 2 weeks and then life will be good. I didn't really notice anything, to be honest, not in the child and adolescent populations I'm with, but then it started to get a little bit more serious and then people were losing their jobs. And so when you have a single parent with no job or a 2-parent family, there's a significant reduction in income, and that's scary. Even with the emergency benefits, think of a family with 2 or 3 kids. Each parent can access, what is it, $2,000 a month, so $4,000 a month. If you're living at home with a mortgage and buying food and other expenses that come up, that's hard. And so that was one of the very first things that I was faced with, and coming up with a sliding scale for clients so they could still access service. So I saw it at the clinic, and we would hear a lot about parents like, how am I going to find a job? There are no jobs. When am I going to work? I'll share a story. My middle son is a instructor lifeguard, and he's lost his summer job and has to pay for university. So that would be the first most obvious one that I came across. And then we get into number 2 and 3 on the slide. How do you balance work from home for those of us that do have a job and childcare?
That's the magic question.
Oh my word. that balance, and then not only balancing it, it feeds into the next one, parents needing to be teachers. And so that has become probably one of the bigger issues, is how are you supposed to work all day? And if you've got young children, and I'm talking like toddlers, a lot of the daycare is closed, right? So toddlers all the way up until about grade 4, 5, 6, kids can be a little bit more independent, but you're not going to leave your 3-year-old while you go run a meeting. So that was an enormous struggle for families. And what I was finding more, and maybe a little bit more for the moms, is that spending all day with the kids, trying to keep them occupied, and then working all night to catch up on work. Clients of mine who parents are teachers, you know, they're with their kids all day and they're planning lesson plans all night and getting up at the crack of dawn. So that balance has been an enormous stressor. And that feeds right into, so the stress of balancing those two roles is significant. But then the stress, if you're not trained as a teacher, how on earth are you supposed to teach the Ontario curriculum to your kids? Where that's becoming a problem is things like math. I know I was taught math very differently than the way you notice that, Christy, it's very different.
Yeah, I'm not smarter than my 4th grader, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And the way they teach, you know, it's renaming and regrouping, and fractions used to be a pi and now it's on a number line. And how do you teach when you don't know how? And so that's, parents feel like maybe they're not good enough, or they're letting their kids go. That is a really, really big one. And I'd say those two go together, the balance and being a teacher. What we did notice in sort of our first line of business was the families with relationship issues. So any kind of relationship issue that a family is struggling with has been magnified in many cases. Once we realized, okay, everyone is kind of sheltering at home, our first role, like as the psychologist in the practice and speaking with my other therapists, was we got to reach out to all the families where child abuse, Children's Aid Society, and domestic violence are concerns, because those families are at really, really high risk for increased abuse, high risk for increased domestic violence. And anytime the CAS, Children's Aid Society, is involved, we have to kind of sit up and take notice and figure out safety plans for them. So your question is, what are some of the challenges I find? And so I put those in the top order, but the very first job I did was track down all of our families that have those kinds of issues and reach out to them to build a safety plan. Likewise, you know, relationships are magnified, mental health issues are exacerbated. So, you know, you see, you know, teenagers struggling with depression, right? Or anxiety, and now they're at home. And that has been a big issue as well, is that those feelings of loneliness and isolation are just bigger. They're exacerbated. Strategies that kids would use to manage, you know, go for I don't know, a latte or something, or frappuccino. Well, that's not an option anymore.
Right.
Kids that played sports, that, you know, to help them manage their frustration or anxiety, or to make them feel like if they struggle at school, but they can do this, those options are gone. So there was a definite increase in symptoms or symptom severity. Lots of, and I would say worry over loved ones and social isolation are big ones. With the teenagers and the kids, it's the social isolation that I see. It's feeling left out. I don't know if you're familiar with FOMO, fear of missing out. It should be a diagnosable condition in adolescents, FOMO. Yeah. And this sense, you know, if you know, I'm not involved, I'm not included, and even though nobody's doing anything, we're all at home, I'm missing out. I don't know what they think they're missing out on. My friends aren't texting me back as quickly as I would like. So feeling very acute sense of being isolated from their peers, and that's a really big one for students, young children and adolescents alike. They feel very left out.
You know, it's funny because I didn't realize the effect it was having on Sadie, my youngest, but she just last week said to me, "Mommy, I don't have any friends anymore." And I said, "What do you mean? Like, of course you still have friends." She's like, "Well, no, my only friend is Avery. My friend," then Avery actually lives on our street, so Sadie has been able to see her from a safe distance. But in the 7-year-old mind, out of sight, means they're literally gone. Like she doesn't think that all of her classmates are gone.
And in her mind, she may think they're all having fun together.
Yeah, like I didn't realize that was
Yeah.
even a thought process for her until she verbalized it.
Well,
So-
she's a great kiddo, right? So she's able to. A lot of kids can't verbalize it, but they just have this feeling like they're missing out. So social isolation is really big for the kids. Worrying over loved ones tends to be something I've seen parents worry about if they have their own parent in a long-term care facility. If they're worried about, even if their parents are alive, or aunts, uncles, loved ones that may be living alone, lots of anxiety over how they're doing. Now I left at the very last bullet here, and I'm going to add one more to it. Fear over COVID-19. I actually haven't seen as much as I anticipated.
Really?
Yeah, I thought for sure. And in fact, so the point I was going to add was, there's some kids that don't care at all. They're quite happy. They never liked school to begin with. They just want to be at home. And the introverts who don't love school, they are happy. I thought some of my kiddos that are struggling with like a germ OCD, I thought, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Got to come up with some kind of plan for these ones. And in fact, they're happy as a lark. Everyone is at home. Everyone is washing their hands. People are doing what they need to do. I'm good. So I did see a drop off of my germ OCD clients. They are not doing too badly. So there's
Interesting.
there's certainly challenges.
Yeah.
But there have been a few, and I'd say it's fewer that don't mind at all. I'd say that's the minority, but there are certainly a group that are really not too worried about this COVID thing, and they're quite happy to be at home and not have to deal with tricky peer dynamics or school that they don't like or regiment. There's some that are just doing quite fine. And those kids also tend to be in families where money's not an issue, where they don't have to worry about, can we pay our rent?
Right.
And they don't have to worry about, conflict in the home, marital conflict. They tend to just be fine at home.
Right.
So those would be the biggest challenges. And again, it's evolved. It's evolved from kind of panic and anxiety to now helplessness, more of a low mood. Things that I thought were going to be challenging have not been challenging. And then there's others that I wasn't expecting that have cropped up.
You bring up an interesting point about the evolving that I actually hadn't thought of until we started talking, but that's a really, I think we will continue to see this situation evolve, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. Liz, if you want to move over to the next slide. So, we talked about kind of all of the challenges that we're facing, and, as a mom that's trying to balance the work and 3 kids and being a teacher and not being a mathlete, that one really obviously resonates with me. So I think a good follow-up to that is, okay, so we've identified the challenges. What suggestions do you have for families that are navigating, trying, and I wish that we could figure out a better word for balance, because I don't think anyone is balancing. It's prioritizing time in your day, because balance sounds like we've got it figured out, and I haven't talked to a single parent who has it figured out.
No. There's no balance. It's balance suggests exactly like you said, Christy, I've got time for this and time for that. And, I make sure I carve out time for, it's all been thrown out the window. It's prioritizing what's important and figuring out what do you need to get done in a day, right? And so that's the very first point. Set some sort of a schedule and stick to it. And it does not have to be 9 a.m. is wake up, 9:30 at the kitchen table, 10 o'clock is math, 10:30. No. That's going to backfire. It would be kind of a global kind of schedule of, we are going to wake up and get out of bed. We should have some food. We're going to try and fit in, and families have done different things where they've done like a checklist of 5 things that need to happen. And it just is going to happen at some point over the day. Trying to schedule meal times are kind of already ingrained in a lot of families. We're all going to eat at 5:30, kind of around that area. Things have shifted for sure, but some kind of a semblance of a schedule. And depending on the functioning of the family and what's reasonable, you could set 5 goals for a day, or you could set 2, right? It really, really depends. I mean, I have, I think I'll talk about this a little bit later on. Some of my teenage clients have become nocturnal. They're up all night and they sleep all day. And so for them, I just want like two goals: get out of bed for at least an hour and sit outside. So we go with what the family needs, but there's got to be some semblance of a schedule. Without a schedule, there is no balance, and it's a free for all. It's more likely to create problems later.
Right. Okay.
As much as possible, we want to take good care of our physical health. And, in a community where some people may be struggling with chronic illness, that's okay. Well, I don't feel very healthy. I know. I'm working with a young man with terminal cancer, and for him, what we do, no, he's not healthy. So when I say we got to prioritize your physical health, what I'm talking about is within your own body, how do you maximize the health that you have? So go to bed and get some rest. Get some fresh air. If you can move your body and exercise, and you don't have to go and do a massive workout, but try and
Take a walk. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a walk, exercise, fresh air, sleep, and the food, right? I mean, I'm hearing that grocery stores are out of flour and banana bread is the biggest recipe being Googled. Well, that's great, but make sure it's kind of healthy, right? If you could throw in maybe a piece of fruit or a vegetable, it might be healthy. And I say this tongue in cheek, my favorite food group is chocolate. So
yeah, I was going to say, I pretty much like, I'm like 100% certain I ate at least a pint of Ben and Jerry's or Haagen-Dazs every single week for like the first 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh yeah,
And I own it. That's my coping mechanism. I had the vegetables. I just followed up the vegetables with
some ice cream.
Yeah, ice cream. But
I love it. That's great. I mean, I think, Dan, it's I just worry about when it's fast food for breakfast and fast food for lunch and fast food for dinner and snacks and sugary, salty snacks. You know what? We're at home and we got to do whatever we can. And that's just one piece of it. When I was reading this question, Christy, and it was, how do you navigate physical distancing, struck me. Because we can't navigate it. We can't be with other people. We have to accept it. We don't navigate it. We are supposed to be at home. Although I saw the pictures from Trinity Park in Toronto on the weekend. I'm like, nobody's navigating that. We're supposed to be at home, or we're supposed to be at a distance. But what I would say is you kind of pair physical distancing with social connection. Just because you're at home doesn't mean you have to be isolated socially. And so just accept that you're home and you want to be safe. Follow the, I'm not going to buy in. I'm not sure where everyone else is with this. I don't buy into the conspiracy and it's a lie, whatever. I'm taking it at face value. Again, I've got a son with a heart condition. But you can certainly build in a lot of social engagement. Now it's done electronically, and I'll get to this later. We used to try and limit our kids' video games, but now that's their way of staying connected. And the only way to handle physical distancing, well, the only one of the ways is to keep up with social connection, right? You are not socially distant, right? We can do that over technology.
We've had some good, since the weather got nice, Sadie and her little bestie, Sadie is on our driveway and her bestie's on the sidewalk across the road. And they've navigated, like, you wouldn't know that there's feet in between them, so they can actually physically see each other.
Yeah.
And even that, now we did have to, she cried the other day because she said, I just want to give her a hug.
I know.
And it was like, you know what, honey, I hear you. We had my dad come for a visit, and again, driveway to porch. And I found that visit actually made me feel worse because I couldn't hug him.
Yeah.
My kids couldn't go and hug him and my stepmom. And that to me, like, it actually made, I was better when I hadn't seen him.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, because it just that loss, right? That physical, is how much you rely on.
And we have to be creative with what's second best.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes to bridge that, here, let me hand a plate of cookies. I'm going to set it down here and you go get it. We do some kind of reciprocal, I'm giving you a piece of me, but it's getting creative and it's hard, but that's reality. So we have to accept it. right? You want to
Absolutely.
keep your parents, your stepdad, or kids' grandparents healthy.
Well, yes, I mean,
You just
yeah,
have to do that.
are older. I've got the autoimmune condition, so we are like you. We're isolated,
Seriously,
and trying to your point, get creative about how we can share our
absolutely.
time.
And I would say just the last one is build in some self-compassion, and that might be a pint of Ben and Jerry's, right? Some self-care. What makes you feel good, right?
Yeah.
Watch the alcohol, weed, and vape, because I know addictions are going way up. So when I'm saying
Yes.
self-care, I'm actually talking about not excessive, indulging in excessive alcohol or substances, but bubble bath, or if you don't have time for self-care because you're navigating 10,000 things, your morning shower, just stop and breathe for a couple minutes. Have a Ben and Jerry's, a tub of it if you need to,
Yes.
and that's where the creative piece comes in. No, you can't go for dinner with your best friend. So what else are we going to do, right? But self-care is such an important piece.
Absolutely. So our next question is, what tips would you have for helping children who, if we have kiddos that are more prone to anxiety? My middle son he loves a routine, and he loves school. He loves, he takes pride in what he does. So he's one of those kiddos that I've been kind of watching during this, because his anxiety, it triggers, at the end of school and beginning of school, he can be a challenge because his routine is changing.
Is messed up. Yeah.
So he's now, you talked about March 13th, 100%. We look at like pre and post, and I've got a kiddo that everything in his world stopped. His hockey, his play dates, his going outside with his friends, his school. How do we manage our kiddos that are dealing maybe with that anxiety, and then on top of, okay, everything's been taken away and that makes me feel unsettled, but now they've lived with us saying, drilling it into their head, no, we have to stay home to be safe, and now it's like, oh, okay, things are open, and the kids are like, you said that we had to stay home to be safe, I can't go play with them.
Yeah, now they don't want to. Now we've created a flip. Yeah. It's tricky. And you asked, how do we handle their anxiety? For some, it is anxiety, but for a lot of kids, it's frustration. They're not worried, they're just mad.
Right.
For other kids, it's deep disappointment and sadness, right? The grade 12s, right? They don't have a grad, they don't have a prom. Possible for those going into post-secondary, won't have a first-year experience in residence. So it's anxiety for some, it's sadness, disappointment, frustration. I think most important to connect with our kids is to say, hey, you're right, it is really hard, right? I know you're worried. So to validate how they feel. Now, to validate how they feel doesn't mean to agree with it, right? When they've got anxiety, it's more along the lines of, I know you're really worried about this. I know you're worried about the germs. I know you're worried, or I know you're very sad. And I wonder what we can do to make it a little bit better, right? And I often talk to kids about, a 10-point scale of emotions. And Christy, you may have heard me say this, like the top is the 10++, where it is really bad. And so we don't need to bring it down to a 0, but how do we bring it down a little bit? So validating, if you're going to be able to connect with your kids and be able to find ways to deal with it, you've got to validate and meet them where they are. They're disappointed. Okay, I know you're disappointed. That must be hard. Let's talk about next steps. And now we have a point of entry. Once they feel like you get it, now we can do our work. One of the first ones is, again, and you probably are going to see this on other slides, is social connection. I can't underscore the importance of social connection. For teenagers, this is a period of developing their identity. Well, they don't have anyone to practice those new identities out on.
Right.
It's hard. So getting kids connected can help them actually deal with the anxiety. And I'm going to go into some of this a little bit more on a later slide with kids who have more significant anxiety, but anxiety and all of the emotions have both a physiological and a psychological component. And so the physiological piece that goes with anxiety would be things like butterflies in my tummy, or my heart is racing, my palms are sweaty, my head is light. I mean, I've heard everything from different kids. They feel it in their body. And so one of the first things we would do with a child, a younger kid as well, but even the teenagers, is calm their body. The power of breathing.
Yes.
Because when the body is calm, now we can think a little bit more clearly. When the emotions are running high and the anxiety is through the roof, boy, it's really hard to problem solve. And so we wouldn't problem solve until the body is calmed. So we have our point of entry with validation. So we let them know we're trying to get you connected. And now we have to calm. And there's all kinds of, I mean, I put the example of Cosmic Kids Yoga just because it's so popular and kids seem to love it. But there's all kinds of apps for kids on YouTube, relaxation videos for children, for preschoolers, children's, preteens, teens. Calm. Because being calm is almost incompatible with worry.
Right.
So we need to look at that mind-body connection. Dealing with the anxiety, one of the things that's kind of come out, and again, like I say this loosely because there's not a lot of research, this is so new, is mastery of a new skill. Okay, what on earth does that mean? What can kids do? Again, it doesn't mean math homework, and this is not something that parents have to add on to their to-do list, but
yeah,
a lot of kids are kind of on their own, coming up with things that they want to learn, whether it's learning how to cook, learning how to bake, learning how to draw, gardening, learning how to make bracelets, you know,
does learning how to do a TikTok video, like
absolutely learning how to do a TikTok video count.
Because we're working on that mastery over here.
Well, let me share something with you. My son, and I don't even know where he is right now. He could be listening. He's the 19-year-old, and you know, he wants to be a gym teacher, and he's pushed the limits at every stage. And I gotta tell you, he's awesome. I always praise that he's funny and people like him, but his goal is, he's a soccer player. Is 500 keep ups. Now I don't even know what a keep up is, but it's when you juggle the ball from one foot to the other foot to the other foot. Well, his pandemic skill that he would like to learn is 500 keep ups in one shot. And I'm thinking, really, like, reach for the stars, but like, honestly, where did you come from? And I have another one who wants to get through playing all of Chopin's etudes. It's a piano. It's a famous pianist. So I've got one who's mastering, you know, piano repertoire, and another one who wants to keep up a ball. We can't, I guess my point is, we can't tell our kids what skill to master. They have to pick it. And if it's TikTok, soccer, piano, cooking, sewing, drawing, I don't, you know, I'm here nor there with it. If kids like music and they've got a ukulele, you can learn how to play the ukulele on a YouTube video. It's up to them. But when kids have something that they like, something that they may want to tackle, it gives them a sense of purpose in their day. And it can help take the edge off of anxiety. And I also said, keep it light. Like, we're stuck inside when they're dealing with anxiety. Let's try and bring some joy and some lightness into our day, so it's not serious. As serious, it is serious. I wanted to add one little tip. When you have a child who's struggling with anxiety or anger or frustration or sadness, is I'm just going to give you a little creative activity that some kids have found, I don't know, kind of helpful, or parents have found helpful, is to have, maybe more for the under 12, have your child draw the coronavirus, and not the coronavirus image that we see in the news, you know, the ball with all these red crowns all around it. No. What does the coronavirus look like to them? And you'll be surprised. Does it look like a monster? Does it look like a bunch of squiggly lines? Maybe it looks like a person. Have them draw it as your point of entry with those kids. What color is it? Why did you choose that color? You want to find out how they're feeling about the pandemic. What feelings do you have about this? If you could say something to Corona, what would you say? And what do you think the coronavirus would say back to you? So that is an activity that any parent could do with their child. Bring out some coloring or some art stuff. Do not go to the store. Take what you have at home, and ask your child to if you want to understand how they feel about it, which is a big question, especially for a little child. How are you feeling today? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Rumping around. Why don't you draw it for me? Why did you choose that color? Why does it look like that? Oh, I saw you put something over there. Try non-evaluative language. None of this, oh, that's so beautiful, that's so good. No, no, no. Just ask questions to show interest as a way to get them talking about their feelings, about the pandemic, right? Draw me a picture. So that's a little like a creative way of helping to understand what a child is going through.
That's a great tip. When you and I were preparing for this webinar, you talked a little bit about the to-do jar. And
I'm going to get to that later.
Oh,
Wait,
okay.
no, that's on my creative one. No, that is here.
I want you to share it because we
okay.
sat
Did
here
you?
and it's been great. And
Okay.
you know, Simon and I
Really?
are
Oh,
doing
okay.
it as well. So
the whole be creative. Oh, thanks, Christy. Okay, so you reminded me. I was going to get ahead of myself. Be creative. So the assess how a child feels is draw the coronavirus, and there's no right or wrong. It's up to them. So that's one kind of creative way. I did say that Christy had this tip is a lot of kids are feeling like they're missing out. I want to go to a movie. I want to go play soccer. I want to go for a swim. I want to visit my friends. And anytime something like that comes up, you just write it on a slip of paper and put it in a jar. And I would encourage, brightly colored paper or fancy script. And so then when restrictions lift, we can start to look at what kids want to do and what we can do. Now, and I don't know if it was one of your kids, I just know, again, my middle son, I want to go on a safari. Okay, we're not going to Africa. It's got to be within our means. It's meant for things that we can actually, we did pre-COVID, and hopefully we will be able to do post-COVID. Might look differently, but to start a to-do jar. I think I put down, find a hidden gem every day. And again, for some of my clients that are really struggling with depression, there's not a lot of silver linings in their day. And so we will use stuff like, well, what'd you have for breakfast? Oh, cereal. Was it good? Yeah. Okay. You had food in your house and that was good. So I will go to a very, my threshold for what's a jewel varies greatly from family to family or client to client. But if you can find something every day that's good, that you laughed at, maybe we put a brag book and start writing them down. What are our gems every day?
Yeah. It's funny because again, we end every day. You probably gave me this tip years ago, but every day with your high. And we don't, sometimes during the day, we'll talk about your highs and lows, but when I put them to bed, we always end with what was the best part of your day. I don't ask about lows because I don't want it to end on a negative note. And the shift even in our house from, 2 weeks in, like, it was, I didn't have to go to school today. I got to play Fortnite for longer. And then it was, I don't have a high. I did nothing. And so to your point, it's like, well, no, remember when you and your brother built that fort? Oh yeah. Okay. I guess that was my high. And now we're back to, okay, my high was FaceTiming with Maya or doing my homework with Christian. So it's that has evolved in our house, but I find my kids have now, at least over the last week and a half to 2 weeks, been able to consistently pull that high without me having to really dig it out of them.
Right. Yeah. Because they're getting practice.
Hopeful.
Yeah. No, they're getting practice at finding it, and it's a great thing. And you could have them write it down, so they remember.
Yeah.
There is. So I see number 3 continue. I'm just going to mention one other thing I wrote on that last slide was the Harvard Dinner Project. That is a website that was published through or developed through Harvard University's graduate school. And it's got all kinds of tips and tricks for family dinners, recipes that kids can follow if they want to contribute to dinner, games that can be played over the dinner table. Again, we're in this for the long haul. We've been in it for the long haul. Is that a way to make it
oh, that's awesome.
easier? Yeah, so I found that's very, other families have like that. So, okay, but now I will move into tips for managing re-entry.
Yes.
Because this is a big one. And so I'm going to be mindful of the time because I think I could spend the whole time talking about this and I don't want to. So I've got some other stuff, but, and I will speed up a little bit just so I make sure I stay on track. But, and if you wanted to, Liz, just the next slide or the previous one, back it up the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Perfect. Thank you. And I love the picture. It looks like a mom saying, you know, have a super day to her kiddo.
Yeah, you got this.
Yeah, you got this, even if you feel like you don't.
Yeah.
Is starting to plan and visualize. And I'm talking about getting right down to the minutia. Okay, we're going to set your alarm. And what are we going to have for breakfast on the first day? Start to visualize and talk about it. Plan. Again, what do you, if your kid does not wear a uniform, what do you want to wear on the first day? Okay, and we're going to get in the car, and picture yourself getting in the car and drive up to the school, and like in your head, you would talk this over, and not, to your point before, Christy, not at bedtime. We don't talk about stressful or anxiety provoking things right before going to sleep. This would be like a 2 o'clock in the afternoon or a 4 o'clock or dinner conversation.
Right.
We want to plan ahead. We want our kids to start, you know, driving by the, well, parents driving kids by the school, talking about it. It's sort of like an exposure therapy technique. We overcome fears and anxieties by facing them, and we face them gradually and slowly with a lot of thought. And we would do stuff like, picture getting out of the car, picture getting on the blacktop, see yourself lining up, really go through the minutia of planning ahead. If you know some of the kids that are going to be at your child's school or on your child's hockey team, connect virtually so they've got a go-to person. Okay, we're going to meet by the swings. We want to do that. When there is anxiety about COVID, I did put a note on this slide for parents. I mean, you have to also exude some confidence in the school's procedures and policies, in the sports team's policies. If your child is a hockey player, what are the rules around the change room? How are you keeping my kid safe? If you are not confident, your kid is not going to be confident. And so if you have some ideas about, hey, would you guys consider this? Express them and let your kids know that we've got this. I have another activity I wanted to share for kids getting ready to go back to school or go to a team, and it's called Butterflies in My Stomach. Came from Linda Lowenstein, and she's fabulous with her creative ways to work with kids. A lot of children feel anxiety physically, well, we all do, but they feel it in their tummy, and they feel like they have butterflies in their tummy. And so we played the Butterflies in My Tummy game. And what I will do is, you can download this on the internet. I have downloaded a page of butterflies, and there's big butterflies, medium-sized butterflies, and teeny butterflies. And what we do is we would have our kids color in the butterflies, or not. I've got one of my guys is not crafty, but we would cut out each of the butterflies, because there's butterflies in a kiddo's tummy, and so let's cut them out and let's look at them. And on the small butterflies, we would say, what are your small worries? And on the medium butterflies, tell me what you're worried about. What's kind of a bigger one? And then on the biggest butterfly, what's your biggest worry? And so kids come out with, I don't understand anything. Nobody likes me. Those would be big worries.
Yeah.
Little worries might be, I don't know where the washroom is, right? Like, or what if I can't find my pencil, right? So again, similar to the draw the COVID to understand how they're feeling about it, make it really concrete by having some butterflies that they can write down their worries, the big ones, the medium ones, and the little ones that maybe they're worries, maybe they're not. And what we're doing is we're also like unjumbling. I don't know if that's a word. Unjumbling this network of yuck and worry in their belly, right? By having them put it on paper. Okay, so now we know what they're worried about. So what are we going to do about it? And so this is where you could also come up with a list of feel-good messages. And it's similar to Christy, the strips of paper. What are we going to do post-COVID? Let's get some feel-good messages. And again, I would type them out on a piece of paper, kind of like this, feel-good messages.
Yeah.
Type them all out. Maybe use a colorful piece of paper. Or use multiple colors of paper, cut them out and paste them somewhere. Things like, there are things I can do to help myself feel better. I am strong and I'm healthy. I can feel good about being a kind person. I am loved, not alone. I've been through difficult things before and I can do it again. So writing out some feel-good messages and pasting them on again, do not go running to Michael's or a craft store. Use what you've got. Use colorful markers or pencil crayons and put them up. So we know what the worries are, and we've got some feel-good messages for our kids to carry with them as they go into school. I would like to add that those feel-good messages are better not when I come up with the messages, or if you Google feel-good messages on the internet, you will probably find 150. The best feel-good messages are the ones that your kids come up with. Hands
Absolutely.
down, they know them best. So we can prime them and give them some suggestions, or lead them. I saw you were really, with Sadie, I saw that you were able to talk to your friend. How did you, what comes out of that? What's good about that? Oh, I'm really creative. When I can't see my friend, I can wave to her. Like, draw on what they say. So those are some things that I would suggest for re-entry. Validate, figure out what the worries are, and plan.
Yeah, the bigger one. We just talked about getting our kiddos ready for re-entry. What about the crazy parents? I should keep saying crazy. That's the wrong word. But when I think about myself, I'm like, this is I can't. I feel like I'm never going to re-enter. And as I joke about it, but there is a very legitimate, for me, a very legitimate worry about going out into society.
And you know what, I might just start with, because I'm going to run out of time and I don't want to, what I'm going to start with is on this list. So we talked about validation. We've talked about maintaining good physical health. We're not alone. Actually, I don't know if everyone's seen I don't know if they call it a meme. I don't know what it is. We're all in this together. We're all in this storm, but we don't all have the same boat. We all have our own boat, and some people are going to weather this storm just well and others will not. But reaching out, so we're not alone, is a great thing. Connect with the people you care about and share, and know that it's different for everybody and that your fears are valid. But what I want to talk about is distinguishing between, on the one hand, what is a real fear and what's an emotional fear. Fear is a very primitive, natural feeling that kept us alive from an evolutionary standpoint. When there's fear, fight, flight, freeze, or faint. We have a very biological reaction to fear. There is a reason we have fear. It keeps us safe. And it's really important for all of us, kids too, but as adults, to think about what is a real fear and what is an emotional fear. If it is a real fear, don't do it. When to listen to fear. If it's real, Christy, don't go running into an ER if you don't need to. There is a legitimate concern, right? If it is a real true fear, meaning your life is in danger, you could get rejected or abandoned. When it is, you've got a real reason. That's real fear. When we talk about anxiety, it's more of an emotional fear. It's valid because we feel it so deeply. But those fears, when it's an emotional fear, we do kind of have to lean in. We have to say, okay, I'm hating this. I'm going to use my strategies and I'm going to be okay. We have to face those emotional fears. So emotional fears are fears we face. Real fears are ones that we just say, no way. And that's where we have to be able to kind of distinguish. When we have this high level, free-floating anxiety, we've got to be able to say, is it real or is it emotional, right? And when emotional, now we can deal with it. And that's where things like mindfulness come in. And there is actually a spelling mistake on this page as well that I forgot to send you guys. Acknowledge physical and physiological components of anxiety. Now, physical and physiological are the same things. It's physical and psychological.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to send that. There is a very, very deep physical reaction that we have when we're afraid. And if we're going to help combat the psychological, we've got to work on bringing the body's physiological responses down. We've got to work on, again, the power of breath. We've got to work on mindfulness, take mindfulness breaks. It is absolutely essential. If you're going to deal with your anxiety, you've got to deal with some of the physical or physiological reactions that go with it. Some of the other points I put up there is being cautious, not anxious. Coping self-talk is pushing yourself to get through. And go get help. Go get professional help if you need to, because your kids need you to be safe.
Yes.
Right? It's so important to get professional help.
I really liked your possible versus probable. I've been, again, from our preparation.
Yeah.
I've been using that a lot over the last few days.
Is that right? Okay.
Is this possible or is it probable? And I've found that that's helped. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. What's the probability of it? Pretty low.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna, step out of my comfort zone, acknowledge that I don't like this, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's important.
Yeah.
It's
And
good.
that's coaching self-talk, what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? It's facing the emotional fear, right? And if you're cautious, it's very unlikely, you step in.
Yeah.
And you do it.
So our next question, I think, is really, this one is a specific one for the chronically simple community.
Yeah.
And I know we'll just touch on it. Again, you and I probably could talk all day, and we have run a bit long, but for the kiddos that are living with a medically fragile parent, who might be feeling that extra sense of worry. I know my kids have said it, like, okay, Mom, we know that you don't have an immune system. What's going to happen if you go outside?
Yeah,
and
it's terrifying.
So how do you navigate that for your kids, not wanting to put your worries onto them?
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate what you said, not wanting to put your worries onto them. I think in these situations, we have to be mindful that kids are going to have all those anxiety and whether it's depression, anxiety, or anger because mom or dad has a chronic illness, it's going to be magnified, right? So that anxiety is going to be bigger for them. And I think, and I won't get into this too much. I think there is some difference between kids who have witnessed a trauma, like a major event, like a heart attack, or they have a visual reminder of side effects of chemotherapy, or like I have, or you, Christy, it's this chronic ongoing thing, but I probably look fine. Although when I can't see, I'm lying in bed, so it's different for those types of kids depending on the trauma associated with it. But I do think that they know that they're going to feel it more. And that means that they may need more help with co-regulation. They need more help from a parent or someone else that can help them co-regulate that anxiety. And that includes social engagement. So keeping a connection, there's got to be co-regulation and social engagement for those kids, perhaps more so than others. And to be very, very mindful of seeking out what is incompatible with fear. Okay, what on earth does that mean? What's incompatible with fear for a lot of kids is play. When they're playing, they're not afraid. When they're calm and relaxed, they're not afraid. So kind of implementing strategies to, I guess, a more intense, at the nth degree, implementing strategies, more social engagement, finding things that will be incompatible so they get breaks from it, and kind of keeping in mind that we're not taking away your anxiety. We know you're worried. So yes, you're going to have anxiety, and we're going to make sure you've got the tools to manage it, would be how we have to approach it. We don't want to set them up for unrealistic expectations. You're going to be just fine. I did put another list of my feel better bag we could do for some of these kids. And again, it's another one of these lists of things that nobody can see on there. And it's what you would do with your child. The best items on this list are the ones that come from the kid, but you get a bunch of strips of paper, color a mandala, watch a YouTube video, take a bubble bath, funny videos, look at I Spy printables, blow bubbles, make cookies, do an act of kindness. For my teenagers, I also add call a distress line. Right. And so that they have this, because when you're feeling emotional, sometimes we don't think as straight. And so having those prepared in advance can be very helpful. So then we can use them when we need them. We don't have to think about them when we need them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. They're going to
have. Do we have one more question?
We do.
All right.
Trying like super speed.
Yes. Yeah. What are some suggestions for families on how to navigate just the overall uncertainty? And I think the biggest one with this one is not knowing, when is this going to end? What does the future hold? Am I going back to an office? Will they go back to school in September? Just that whole uncertainty of it all.
Yeah. And I rephrase that question. How do you cope without the uncertainty without triggering even more anxiety? and acknowledging we all want to know. I want to know. My kids want to know. Everybody wants to know. But there is uncertainty in everyday life, right? We just don't have to pay attention to it all the time, but we don't know, I don't know, so many things. If I go downstairs tomorrow, am I going to find out that we're out of, I don't know, I was going to say milk. We don't even drink milk here. We can't drink milk. You know, are we out of bread? We don't eat bread either. You know, like there's so much uncertainty that, but this is such a big uncertainty, but there is, and I called it face the radical uncertainty of life in general, and make peace with uncertainty, because you don't have a choice. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We don't know next month. So we focus on today. At my office, I think I initially said, okay, we are going to be open on April 1st. Okay, you know what? Actually, it's going to be April 30th. Now we're looking at mid-May. Yeah, maybe. And I just said, you know what? We just don't know. I'll let you people. We don't know. And so instead of this constant if or when or how or what, how about right now? How about just focus on today? What do we know what's going to happen today? Well, I know I'm going to have dinner with my family. I know I've got these 3 things I need to do. We have to focus on the present and just take comfort or peace in the fact that this will pass. We may have a new normal, but this will pass at some point.
Well, I know we kind of rushed through that last one, but I think ending on acknowledging that this will pass is a very good point to end on, because you're right. You know, everything that we've talked about for the past hour is dealing with the present and what's gone on in the past 10 or so weeks. But knowing that this is not for the rest of our lives, at least gives us a little bit of comfort. And I definitely think, you know, we could continue this conversation, and we'll have you back, hopefully, if you're willing to.
If no one's falling asleep.
No, I doubt it. Liz, do we have any questions? I know we've only got a couple of minutes. Is there anything that
we don't actually have any that have come through?
Perfect.
But yeah, we will be sharing this recording on our website. So if anyone thinks of any questions after watching the recording or anything like that, you can send them in, and hopefully we can coordinate a response.
Absolutely. Or you can even forward them to me, and I can forward a response to you as well, like whatever would be most helpful, or to get those questions answered. This was dense. Like, we fit in a lot of stuff in an hour.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You know, I always learn when I talk to you. There's always good tactical nuggets that I can take away and implement. And, you know, I think for parents, if there's one little thing that we can do, like our to-do jar, that was such an easy, good thing. And then as soon as one of my kids said, oh, this stinks, I wish I could do X, I'm like, go put it in the jar. Write it down. And when we can do it, we'll pick it out, and that's what we can do. And so that gave them just that little bit of, okay, I can't do it today, but I will do it. So I'll go put it in the jar. So, you know, on behalf of our community and the people watching, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and giving us this time. I really appreciate it. I'm just so grateful.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thanks for letting me do this. That's great. It's my first webinar. Right?
Well, hopefully it wasn't too painful for you. Now that we've got the text.
That's great. I've done talks. This is my very first webinar, so it can now go on my record. I've done a webinar.
There you go. You're fancy.
Thank you. Now, I actually don't know how to end a webinar, so I will leave that up to you guys.
Yes.
Just wanted to reiterate our thanks and appreciation to Dr. Christina. We will be sharing the recap after, if anyone's interested in watching or sharing it, and stay tuned for upcoming webinars. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.